The Smash community is one of the most talented communities I've ever seen. In other news of the obvious, did you guys know my hoodie's orange? Nah, but seriously though, let's look at the facts. It has a self-established competitive scene, a crazy modding scene that makes the most insanely impressive mods that are pretty much games in of themselves, and a dedicated community that's there every time a new entry's announced. So with all the out the way, I hate this community so much. Like I really hate y'all, man. I hate y'all. I hope all of y'all stub your toes and that when you sleep, you have no cold side to your pillow. By the way, just for confusion, I'm not talking to you guys like you who are watching this video. I wish all of y'all unstubbed toes and cold pillows galore. But honestly, the Smash community makes some of the craziest and dumbest takes, hates characters for reasons that they don't even really know, and every time there's something they don't like, they always want to fire Sakurai for some reason, like he's some unpaid intern. Like, geez, Mr. Krabs, relax. And nothing spells this out more than when we talk about Smash leaks. So, for those that don't know and may not be in the Smash community like that, Smash leaks refer to pieces of information that someone, most likely from 4chan, comes out with that talks about future content in Smash Bros. That hasn't been officially announced yet. Whether this is true or not, and let's be honest, 90% of the time these leaks aren't true, but it does lead to fun speculation and discussion. So usually they're pretty welcomed in the community, even if they're fake. Each Smash game after the first one has had their own leaks and rumors that have come out throughout their development, and Smash Ultimate is no different. There's a lot that I'm sure we'll get into in the future, but the leak that we're going to talk about today is a leak that I entered the rabbit hole for about 2 years. I'm not even kidding. Now, this started when I got a comment from Hudyu that mentioned that I should do a video on the leak. And I won't hold you guys. The amount of stuff coming out for this leak is something that I was not ready for whatsoever. And there's definitely people who don't know the story of my 2-year journey with this leak. For all the old viewers, I did like completely remaster it and it has better pacing to it and everything. So don't worry, this isn't a waste of your time, I promise. Anyways, let's get on with telling you guys about the leak that ruined my life. 2 years. Alright, so where does this lay on our calendar of things? Let's see here. November 4th. Oh, nice. That's don't look at that. Anyways, on November 4th, 2019, there was a storm that happened on 4chan. There was something crazy that went on. Now, around during this time was November 4th, 2019. This was after the Terry stuff, because Terry got announced early September. Hero and Banjo already got announced and whatnot, and they already came out. I don't believe Terry came out until a little later at this point, but though I may be wrong about that, so don't crucify me if I'm wrong. However, the 5th character hasn't come out yet, and was the face of the media disappointment yet. There's a lot of speculation towards who the 5th character is, and I remember I wasn't really focused on that because, you know, I was worrying about some other things like education and watching YouTube videos and like, wow, that really is all I do with my life. So there was a leak by an anonymous user on 4chan a while ago on November 4th, 2019. Let's just get this over. In this leak, there was a mention of a picture. Now, I think one thing about pictures, and we'll talk about kind of the status of leaks in the community, right? And of course, I'm going to show you guys using this very complicated and hard to understand table. So, are you guys ready for it? All right, ready? 3, 2, 1. Yeah, I know.
Meanwhile.
So, of course, on the bottom layer, you have the text-based leaks. Anybody can make a leak like that. Anybody at all. You don't need any special talent or anything like that. There's a text-based leak saying this information, if something happens and that leak comes true, people will ride on it usually. But a lot of people have a lot more speculation and will be much more wary with those type of leaks than, you know, if that is the case. Next, you have your picture leaks. Those are the ones that are a static image that looks, it's the iPhone 3 image. It's the picture you take with your phone and then you put it on 4chan or wherever you want to put it on, and then you do that. And then you have your video leaks. Now this is where it gets kind of wild. Video leaks are extremely hard to do, and we'll get more into that later. I just want you guys to know those are kind of the statuses of how this works, so that way you guys know how kind of credible that this leak could be, and it is. The picture showed Ken doing the thumbs up. Okay! You had me Gunner with the Cacomallow hat, and I know it's probably name is Caca Demon, but when I say Caca, it's like I'm saying poo demon, so I wanna give the demon the
Caca Demon.
Cacademon.
Oh gosh, that was very loud. I'm sorry. It's Cacademon. Cacademon, alright? That's how you say it. You heard me. It's exactly
Cacademon.
Shut your ass up. Alright, golly. Not supposed to say. Alright, that's it. Where's my freaking gun? Not only was there a Cacademon, there was also another picture of a Mii Brawler with a Mallow hat. Now, once again, I don't want to filter out everyone who doesn't know what the hell a Cacademon is. So these two characters come from the Doom series and come from the Mario RPG series, if you want to call it that. We've discussed a lot about Geno before. However, Mallow is a companion of Mario and is one of the many companions of Mario that Mario has throughout Super Mario RPG. Along with Bowser, Peach, Geno. There's also Mallow, who's a character that he meets early on in the game. Him and Geno are pretty much the only ties to Super Mario RPG. Obviously, you have things like Mr. Smithy and stuff, but Mallow and Geno are kind of the two characters that stick out a lot of people's heads when you think of only Super Mario RPG characters. What are characters that got introduced in the series? Mallow is a popular character, and he's a look at him, he's a little fluff ball, dude. A Cacademon is one of the main enemies from Doom, and he comes from the Doom series, obviously. With a Cacademon, it's not exactly a character, it's an enemy, and it's one of the basic enemies of Doom. From what I understand, I may be wrong, and if I'm wrong, please correct me. If I understand, it's like the Goomba or the Koopa of the Mario series. It's like what a Goomba and a Koopa is to Mario. That's what a Cacademon is to Doom. I never thought I'd compare a mushroom with giant ball sack red demon thing. Never thought I'd ever do that in my life. But you know what? I did it just now. So now that you know who these two characters are, let's go back to the leak. Going into a general description, this leak takes place entirely on the Yggdrasil's altar stage, revealed in the hero trailer in E3 of 2019. Now you're probably asking, why does this matter? Well, gamers and game readers, you'll see, so stay tuned and shut up. Because you're mean. Anyways though, another interesting detail about this leak is the nod to another leak back during Smash Ultimate's first reveal back in E3 of 2018. To explain things real quick, on September 1st, 2018, someone on 4chan leaked kinda while ago, showing two photos, both being on the Moray Tower stage. One was just a photo of Ryu, Pikachu, Ivysaur, and Pac-Man, nothing too special because those characters already got revealed. But the real photo that would enlarge eyeballs and mouths alike, I mean look at these guys over here, was this photo right here, with a thumbs up Ken right there, eerily like the one in this leak which was revealed a year later. Because of this, it almost seems like it's a nod to this specific leak in particular. And Ken, later on in November of 2018, would be revealed as one of the Echo Fighters in the game, in which his model and mannerisms seemed very similar to the picture itself. Now can you guys guess which character he's an Echo Fighter of? That's right! Bill Clinton. So both the Cacomallow Leak and this Ken leak would have these similarities, with it being a group of characters posing and taunting, and Ken being the link between the two. Other than that, I can tell you one big difference between these two leaks, and that is, just these two little very convincing videos that also, God, please. So at the same time the pictures went viral, the 4chan gremlin also sent some video evidence of the fighters in the Mii outfits moving around to show that these were legit in one way or another, whether it was made by Nintendo or someone else entirely. And if you look at our leak chart, don't worry, I'll give you a second, you see that the video leaks are not only the pinnacle in terms of quality, but also the most scarce. Unlike text, which takes no effort whatsoever, or a picture that you can make with some basic knowledge of Photoshop, making videos require at least some amount of knowledge of modding a Smash, something that the majority of the community do not have available in their skill tree. Hell, a lot of them barely have showering in their skill tree. Because of this, when an actual good video leak comes out of the community, people become a lot more accepting of the leak being real, because it begs the question, who put all this work in? Artsy Omni, the only guy I can think of. Well, actually, speaking of him, his Rayman leak to this day was one of the most believable leaks that came out during the time, and was one of the only video leaks that comes to mind that you think of that's really good, but at the same time wasn't real. You had good attempts like the Springman Decidueye leak, but overall, video leaks come a dime a dozen. And when you look at the videos of the Mii costumes moving around, it looks pretty real, and in some ways is more impressive than even the Rayman leak, since this one had actual gameplay, unlike the Rayman leak, which just had the characters on the character select screen, which is still impressive, but It's gameplay. Now, there are a couple things in the videos that had people put on their thinking caps as time went on, but we'll talk about that in a bit. Also, to get all my bearings straight and to make sure I'm not forgetting things, to give more credence to this leak being real, there's also a quote from the legendary Pete Hines, the lad responsible for being the vice president of PR and marketing at Bethesda, commenting on any collaborations between Nintendo and Bethesda from a Smash Bros. Standpoint. How it went was that the interviewer asked him whether Bethesda had talked to Nintendo about Smash Bros. In any way. And what did he say? Oh yeah! Yeah, he said that. Now, at the time, people were speculating what this could mean, but in retrospect, it was probably of the discussion of Vault Boy's Mii costume, if I had to take a guess personally. Going back to the leak though, the real question is, what does this leak imply exactly? Said absolutely no one, because obviously it's about Geno and DoomGuy, but let's just pretend you guys are stupid and let's go through the evidence. So obviously with this leak, one thing that I will say, and one thing that is obviously shown, is that it implies the fact that Geno and DoomGuy are going to be in Smash Bros. In some way, shape, or form. Now I say that because these could be through actual playable fighters, or it can be through Mii costumes, because Geno has been a Mii costume before, and DoomGuy could very well be a Mii costume as well. We don't know. And honestly, if that's the case, it wouldn't be the most surprising thing in the world. I think a lot of people, when it comes to this sort of thing, if this leak is real, I know it implies the fact that, oh, Geno and DoomGuy are playable fighters, but I think for me, it just implies that they're in the game somehow. Like, they could be very well fighters, and I would be perfectly fine with that. Or they could be Mii costumes and everyone gets pissed off, right? So it's just one of those things, because these are two characters that are so highly requested. Now, talking about Geno and DoomGuy, I have talked ad nauseum about Geno. If you guys want to know how I feel about my position of him being in the Fighter Pass 2, I would recommend go watching an old Geno video I did called like The Tragic Tale of Geno. Now, DoomGuy is another character that I've covered in the past, in which I remember saying that because of the graphic content in Doom, like the blood and the arm cutting and the blood, I thought that maybe Master Chief would have been a better shot. Do I still feel this way? Not really. A big reason why is because I also did a decently extensive look into his game history in his own video to answer why I feel that his inclusion in Smash is warranted. So I won't go into detail about it here. Just know that I respect the lad a lot more than I did previously. One important thing about this though, with the DoomGuy, I feel like when it comes to his inclusion in Smash Bros, I think it's warranted as a playable fighter, but I can once again see him as being a Mii costume of sorts. And I just want to let you guys know this now, just because the Cacodemon is a costume in the game, that does not necessarily mean that DoomGuy is confirmed to be in Smash at all. There have been multiple cases of franchises having a Mii costume in Smash Bros, but then they don't get their other character in any shape or form. A good example of that is Goemon Mii costume. That Mii costume was there, but there was no more Goemon representation in Smash Bros. And I know what you guys are gonna say, oh, that's because he's the main character, right? This isn't the main character of Doom, obviously. DoomSlayer is. I'll bring up to you guys another example of a character like this, and I think would warrant even more towards this being real, because in this aspect I feel like they would put the character in there, and that's the freaking Monster Hunter dude, because they put the Rathalos in as an assist trophy, but they don't have the Monster Hunter there as an actual character, meaning that assist trophies, even when they have a series there, which in my opinion, I regard more highly than a Mii costume, if that doesn't happen, it's one of those things where Sakurai can do whatever he wants. If he wants to have a Cacodemon hat in there and not have the DoomGuy in there due to like violence reasons or something along those lines, but he wanted representation in Smash Bros, then sure, throw him in there. I don't know personally. Like I said, I'm not saying that I know. I'm just bringing up the fact that this leak could very well not lead to anything concerning DoomGuy or Geno that is worth hype. That's all I'm saying. I'm not denying the possibility of that happening, but what I am doing is I'm tempering my expectations, because if this leak is real and these turn out to just be throwaway costumes that are just there, well, what do you freaking scoop-de-doop-de-doo, man? Whoop-de-freaking-doo, and now we all got hype for nothing. There was nothing in the leak that said that because these two costumes are in, that means Geno and DoomGuy are 100% confirmed playable characters. I just wanted to throw that out there if this leak is real. Now, speaking of real, I figured we would have to argue both sides, because there's a lot of arguments that happened when this leak first came out. So when it comes to arguing both sides, you know, that being the real or fake type beat, you know what I mean? Obviously, we have to analyze fairly both sides of the coin when it comes to people who think this leak is real real versus people who think this leak is fake. However, when we look at the leak from a retrospective nowadays compared to back then, I'm pretty inclined to believe the negatives outweigh the positives by a significant margin, which I will get into like in a second. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go over the main points at the time of why people thought that the leak was real, and then we'll look at the negative that kind of disproved the positive later on that day, I guess you could say, because these were disproved fairly quickly. I won't hold it. We're gonna start with the positives, right? So for starters, I think the main argument for this leak being real is the people saying that it was impossible or really hard, next to impossible, those type of terms, to mod the skins, and that apparently there's a better chance that we'll be able to figure out the freaking SpongeBob mailman theory, you know what I mean?
So do you deliver your own mail, or do you have your own mail person? But then who delivers his mail? Is there a never-ending chain of mailmen?
Now this was further supported by this comment here, which I think was kind of the flint and steel that started the entire wildfire of people believing this. Basically, this is a person that claims that they were part of the modding community. Obviously, as we get into this, it was more that he was like the freaking busboy of the modding community. It was really weird. As someone in the Ultimate modding community, this personally has me convinced. The big thing about it is just how different Mii stuff works in Ultimate versus Smash 4. In Smash 4, Mii outfits directly scaled with the size of the Mii in question, which was a quick and easy way to make sure they all look decent. However, this wasn't obviously the best solution, as it meant that a lot of Mii costume parts would clip into each other pretty badly, and not look great as a result. In Ultimate, they changed that. There's now a specific sizing algorithm for each individual Mii piece in order to prevent that issue from occurring again, at least as frequently. That algorithm is hard-coded into the Mii characters themselves, meaning that in order to find it, you'd have to dig through the entirety of each Mii's code to even get started on the Mii costume art. And in the video, the hats are on 2 different Mii types, meaning they'd have to do that whole process twice. In addition to that, there's a notorious file size problem that severely limited Ultimate modding so far. If a modded file is bigger than the base file it's replacing, the game will crash upon trying to load that file. So if you have 2 megabyte file and replace it with a 2.1 megabyte file, the game crashes. This is notable because without the specific tools Sakurai and Co use to compress these files, modders have a very hard time shrinking their high quality mods down under that limit. That in of itself is why Ultimate modding is so slow. Now consider the fact that Mii costume files are tiny compared to the actual fighter files, and it gives serious credence to these high quality model tasks. If they're mods, they're not only better modeled than any Smash 4 Mii costume, they're also several leagues smaller in terms of file size in order for them to be even able to work in Ultimate. So yeah, I'm hashtag Team Real on this one. So for those that want the English translation, if you didn't understand, Wildvine was suggesting that adding and modding Mii hats are essentially nearly impossible to do, mostly due to the file size issues, in which I think they explain it pretty well. But just to have everyone on the same page, they mean that you have to have the file sizes of whatever Mii hat you're trying to mod exactly right. And if those sizes are even a little bit off, the entire game crashes. And then it makes it even more complicated when you consider people obviously putting a lot more effort and detail into Mii hats. Now since this statement came out, people would echo these exact same sentiments, just in like a dumber format. And honestly, you'd think that these people have commitment issues with how much they were running away with this explanation. Thus, this was the main argument to this leak being real. Understandably so, especially for those that didn't understand how modding works. Now, we'll come back to this lad later, so until then, next! The other thing a lot of people argued back then is that these have never been done before prior to this leak coming out in terms of modding Mii headwear, which once again we'll get into. So keep this part, keep that last part in mind. Now, I guess another thing you can say is of course proving the timing of this leak, because there is the problem. At first on paper it looks kind of bad. Could say the timing of when this leak came out and the fact that there hasn't been anything revealed yet could still add up nowadays. Now, I did screenshot this right here with this fellow redditor bloat use their very ginormous brain mass to conjure up a theory about the timing of the leak and if it could still make sense today, even though Byleth has already been confirmed already, and with Min Min being the first character of Fighter Pass 2, and the fact that so far we have no sign of either Geno or the DoomSlayer. So I'm gonna read off what they say here. So basically this is what they say. Today's video showed off Fighter 5, and Sakurai specifically stated the video was pre-recorded in November 2019. And obviously they're talking about the reveal of Byleth here. And this was posted 7 months ago, so I mean, shoot me. What's incredibly interesting about that statement is that bro, what? What? Okay. When the Cacodemon and Mallow Me costume leaked early November, November 4th to be specific, and we still don't know if it's 100% fake. Now, Sakurai also confirmed that the next 6 characters have been selected, and remember, this is him confirming this in November of 2019, because the video in the Byleth presentation, Sakurai revealed in the video, like I think at the very beginning, that video was being recorded in November, not January when it came out. I don't know, it might be a long shot, but I think him confirming that the next 6 characters are already selected in November 2019, and then we see a leak showing off the Cacodemon and Mallow Me costumes helps support the idea that both Geno and DoomSlayer will be a part of Fighter Pass 2. If not DoomSlayer, then possibly another Bethesda character. This goes back to what I said before. Just because the Cacodemon hat is in there doesn't necessarily mean that this 100% confirms DoomGuy. Damn it, because this would be a argument that people would say against this leak, that there still has been no confirmation of a Geno anything, or anything of Super Mario RPG, or anything of Doom, and we're here. Min Min's already been confirmed as the start of Fighter Pass 2, though apparently people argued that Min Min was like a last minute pick, that's why there were 6 fighters. I don't know about that one, I'll have to do more research into that aspect, but that's one thing that people say, so maybe that also could contribute for this leak, I don't know, who knows. So the last thing that I can really see that could go into proving the legitimacy of this leak is the timer. Now, at first glance, you may say to yourself, hey bro, what are you even talking about? Dude, the timer's frozen, that's a negative sign. Don't you know it's Smash Bros? When you pick time, dude, it doesn't stay there, dude. There's no way to control it, dude. Well, let me explain, Elsa. The timer being frozen is actually a pretty good sign of it being real, or a great attention to detail that the leaker put in. The frozen timer at 2:30 is actually a sign that this could have been made on like a dev kit of some sort. The reason for having this thing in here and why it proves that this is for the leak is because of the fact when it comes to testing things out in a game, you want freedom like this, since it will be a pain to test things out in 2-minute and 30-second intervals. And obviously with stocks, you can't test things out properly because you're limited to the amount of times you can kill the opponent. And maybe you have to kill the opponent for some reason, I don't know. So it would only be natural for the game developers or the people working on these costumes to stop the timer, only to test out the hat models in the game, see what they look like, see if there's anything they need to improve on and stuff like that. Kind of like a trial system, I guess you could say. So it makes sense to why this could be real. So that's why this goes for the leak, not against the leak. And as far as I can tell, I mean, other than the fact that videos are very hard to produce, but we've already talked about this, that videos are kind of like the highest standing on the very complicated leak chart. But other than that, that's pretty much everything in terms of the evidence of people saying that the leak is real. Unfortunate that I may or may not have to tear down your hopes of this leak being real. Or I could look really stupid trying, but you know, ultimately failing. Wouldn't be the first time. Well, anyways, why the leak could be fake. Let's go through it. So now that we've covered the evidence for this leak being real, let's play devil's advocate and ruin some people. In the past, obviously, not now. I mean, no one cares now. These gamers and game readers were the negatives of this leak. Let's start off with the only argument that didn't exist until after a significant amount of time with the leak, and that was the timing leak and how it could have been real according to that comment before. Now, not to be that guy or anything, but unfortunately the theory that Unlikely Alliance had is just that, a theory. And while theories could be cool when comparing it to the other evidence that seems pretty strong at first glance, the arguments got very quickly disabled. This theory ultimately is kind of a nothing burger on its own and doesn't hold any weight to it, honestly. Especially since there's no concrete proof of when exactly Sakurai and the team finished Fighter Pass 1. A time frame, yes, but a concrete time, no. And look, before you say anything about the next video or the Steve Top 5 ballot theory I had come up with, one, the next video was to solely bring up a conversation about Ness and Smash 4 and expand it, alright? And I did that, so kiss my ass. Not for anyone to believe me completely regarding it. And the Steve thing actually has some merit to it, so don't be that guy, alright? Man, I can't do nothing, so, man. Now look, even if you disagree with me and still think me questioning bro's theory is not cool because I did it, fine. Let's take a different approach to this then. At the peak of this leak's relevancy, there was only one question that people were interested in, and that was, is there any possibility to this leak being fake? It wasn't a question of whether the leak was real or not, but more of a question of could this leak be faked? Since that was the main argument for people that were for this leak being real. It was them saying that it was impossible to mod Mihats. This brings us nicely into the next argument against the leak's credibility, which is the question of if modding Mihats into Smash Bros was possible or not. Now keep in mind that this was the main argument for people saying this leak was real, and once again was directly related to Wildvine's comment about the whole thing. As I alluded to before, people took Wildvine's comment about this leak completely wrong, and thought this meant that it was literally impossible to mod a Mihat in Smash Bros, which isn't true. In his statement, he said that the process of doing so was very hard to do, but nowhere does that say that this is impossible. And even then, I still think that Wildvine was exaggerating, and as you'll see later on, didn't hold any water either. Now, what I will say is that modding Mii headgear was definitely not a widely known thing at the time, and something that leakers didn't do all that much, but the reason why is not because it was impossible to mod. The reason why was because modding the actual fighters was just more interesting to both them and the people that download them. It's simply not that interesting to mod something that only applies to 3 characters that barely anyone uses. No offense to all the Mii Fighter mains, I promise I love every single one of you. All 5. I'm kidding. Also, the Mii Fighter costumes are just an aesthetic. Meanwhile, you have the actual fighters, which you could do a lot more for. Whether that means you're changing the aesthetic of that fighter, which is in itself more interesting than changing Mihats, or you're changing entire movesets. It's just more exciting to mod fighters than Mii costumes. And that's why fighter mods are more popular overall. And to show that modding Mihats were entirely possible this entire time, we now enter in a very talented modder in general, and someone that was one of the main people to disprove that such a thing was possible. And that was a fellow of the name DusterBuster, who I'm gonna call Duster for short. Now, Duster actually posted a video showing that yes, you can in fact mod the Mihats, and that it isn't an impossible task to do. So here's the video you can see here. Kind of nice white texture on that cube there. Now, of course, because it's the internet, they clowned the hell out of Duster for this, basically saying that it was just a cube and it didn't prove anything regarding the leak's credibility, even though that wasn't the goal. It was just to show that Mihats could be modded, but take whatever W you can, I guess, bro. What people didn't realize though is that this directly goes against something that Wildvine put in his argument, which is the fact that when you switch Mihats, it has to be the same file size. He literally says this in the paragraph, and that was his main argument for the leak being real. It doesn't matter what costume Duster put the cube over, you cannot sit there and convince me that this cube with this pixely ass PNG on it and these words have more than any of the Mii costumes that were featured in Smash Ultimate. You just cannot. So with that being said, low-key, this actually disproved one of the biggest arguments that Wildvine had in his paragraph. But anyways, I digress. I guess I'm just dumb, huh? People were just not convinced whatsoever in this cube video, Duster. You just gonna let him talk to you all crazy in the comments like this? Me personally, I would.
That's what I thought you said. Now let me offer this as a rebuttal.
Alright, well, guess he had one in the vault for real. Alright, so on the exact same day Duster made the cube, he also released this picture he did of the DoomSlayer's helmet. And on the same day, managed to apparently completely morph the cube completely. By the way, I know I'm wrong about this. This will come into play later. Just go with it, alright? Yeah, can y'all just like immerse with me? Why y'all always questioning stuff? Just immerse with me, man. Dang. Love you, bye. Now, did he waste his time with this to prove people wrong? Yes, probably. But this is actually really good information that yes, you can in fact mod Mihats. And no, it isn't impossible to do so in the slightest, like a lot of people were claiming. Now, are these Mihats in the actual leak very impressive, especially for the time it was released? 100% emoji, muscle flex emoji, but it is entirely possible by talented individuals. Even though Brawl modding and Smash 4 modding were way more advanced back then, you could even say that it peaked on at least Brawl. Smash Ultimate had some impressive stuff as well that came out, even back in 2019. Smash 4 had plenty of really good mods, even one where you could play as the 64 models with the Smash 4 mechanics. It's truly a fascinating realm of mods that existed in those games, and Smash Ultimate is going to be no different for sure. Regardless though, Duster showed that yes, if you really wanted to, you can make mods work and it's not as impossible as you may have thought. Anyways, with this we kinda killed 2 birds with 1 stone, since I also answered the question of modding Mii headgear never being done before. This actually isn't true either, at least when it comes to Smash 4, because I know there's been Mii hat mods in that game. And the reason to this is probably because it was new back then, thus was more interesting than when the hats came by for the second time in Smash Ultimate. Granted though, that might not have been the case for Smash Ultimate, and I do believe that it would have been harder to to do, but once again, the fact that Duster did the cube Mihat so quickly makes me believe that this has been a thing that's been done before. But I'm not a part of the modding community, so I don't have really a say on this point, because what I got is just speculation. So I'll just leave that alone. Now with that, let's talk about the timer argument. Now for this argument in particular, it's actually more complicated than more than meets the eye. So for starters, this one was originally disproved by another video game modder named Corban. Basically, he released a video disproving the timer thing on the exact same day of November 4th, by the way, by modding the game to where he controls the Mii Brawler against the Dark Samus in the Yggdrasil's Altar stage, the same stage that the Cacomallow Leak took place in. And as you can see, the timer stays the exact same throughout the entire match. The entire video was 20 seconds long, whereas the Cacomallow Leak was only like 13 to 14 seconds when you add up both videos. So obviously, normally we would call it a wrap here, we would end it there, but there's just a teeny tiny issue regarding the video, and that's the fact of the blue shell.
Oh, hi Mark.
So in the video, when you pay attention to the blue shell, as it hovers over the 2 minutes and 30 seconds timer, it actually disappears for a split second before it slams down into Dark Samus, which is a problem because obviously that's not supposed to happen in the games, nor did it happen in the Cacomallow Leak, more importantly. People being the detectives they are, they quickly detected the issue and definitely called it out in the replies. Also, there was another reply that noted another issue with the video where they mentioned that while, quote, "this edit looks good, you can see a bit of the box around it when the timer shifts in front of the clouds." But wait! I have a rebuttal. The argument of the blue shell is actually completely valid for sure. But when you look back at the leak, you see something very interesting. Throughout the entire video, notice how none of the fighters or the items actually go anywhere near the timer, which Hero Techni actually pointed out as a rebuttal to the blue shell argument. Quote, "People are trying to get on Corban for not having the timer fade when the blue shell hits the top right, but the actual leak cuts right before any character gets close to it. Even whoever this leaker is didn't want to fade the timer, or to avoid being inaccurate with opacity. With that being implanted in your mind, notice how in the very last frame of the 8-second video, you see that Ken is getting launched towards the timer location, and it gets cut off right then and there. And on top of that, notice how while Corban's video shows the CPU playing in the video, the leak features all the characters being controlled by the player in some way, shape, or form. Keep this in mind, we'll get into this later. The items that get placed down, like the assist trophy and the hot shot, are completely grounded, and the only noticeable item that floats in the air, being the smash ball, is also nowhere near the timer. Doesn't that send off some alarms for y'all? And before anybody says anything about coincidences, how many coincidences does it take for it not to be a coincidence anymore? But you may be saying to me, okay, fair enough, but what about the box comment that one person commented on? When you pay attention to it, the criticism is actually pretty valid. If you look closely, you can definitely see the border that goes around the timer in Corban's video. So good observation, I'll definitely give that to you. But you know what? Just out of curiosity, let's check the Cacomallow Leak to see if that has a similar border around it. Zoom in a little more. There you go. And, And call me biased, I could be very biased, but I think it was actually easier to spot it in the Cacomallow Leak than in Corban's video, even though both videos are in very similar qualities. Now the last thing I'll mention is that there was actually someone that commented on Discord talking about the possible process that Corban went into the timer. I don't know what the credentials this person has, but they do have good speculation, so let's get into it anyway. The way that above video with the frozen timer was made was by recording footage with no timer, editing in a frozen timer, and then recording it off his TV. And knowing what we know, Ozzy could be completely correct in saying that for sure. But Corban isn't the one trying to sell people of believing a leak. And with the things that we pointed out, you could definitely say that was how the Cacomallow Leak was recorded, which is backed up because both videos are in similar quality. Plus, on top of all that, once again, I'm gonna say this so you guys get this in your heads, people were not trying to definitively prove the leak to be fake, but they did these things just to show that it's entirely possible that this leak could have been done by the community and the only option was not Sakurai. I think Corban may have showed up more evidence than they realized with this leak, and as Fawful for Smash mentions in a tweet, the time Corban took to make that was in about 12 hours or less, and the Cacomallow Leak could have been chilling in the oven for a lot longer, took a lot more effort into it, and hell, could have involved more people. Foreshadowing. Ooh, foreshadowing. And we're not done yet, gamers and gameritas. Yeah, that's right. I'm pressing this leak like an iron trying to get the folds out of my church pants. So this is a problem that I found to this leak being real when being exposed to it for the first time. Let's say that this leak was completely real. Since the leaker had this information available to them to where they could play with these costumes, at the time the costumes hadn't been revealed since we're obviously in September of 2020 at the current moment. Right, guys? Immerse with me. I have fingers. At this point, the leaker would have known about Byleth being the last fighter of Fighter Pass 1, and would have known about Min Min being the first fighter of Fighter Pass 2, since they had come out already at this point. But you know what? I don't think I'm being fair with Min Min, so let's take her out of the equation. We don't know exactly when development started on Fighter Pass 2, so we'll assume at the very least, Byleth was available knowledge that the leaker should have had at this point, since Sakurai said in the presentation that Byleth was done in November, since that was when they began filming the video presentation for him. You especially have to go with this if you also consider Alliance's theory about how this leak could be real. Now, my thing is this: to make sure that no one questioned about this leak, why didn't the leaker play the game on the monastery stage just to show that the leak was completely real? In fact, why not play on Terry's stage? His pass was literally coming out at the same time as this leak was put out. Or why not play as Byleth instead of Ken? Now, you may say it was to call back to the Ken leak that we talked about before, which I mean, alright. Personally, I find it weird to prioritize calling back to a leak rather than proving that yours is the real deal, but okay. In that case then, wouldn't it be a better callback to the Ken leak to have 4 fighters on the stage than the 3 that they ended up having in the Cacomallow Leak? I don't know, I just find it weird that this leak didn't feature Byleth in any way, shape, or form in this at all. You'd think there'd be some kind of insider information about Byleth in this leak, but there just isn't. If you're gonna leak information this far ahead anyway, you may as well just leak Byleth too. Honestly, it probably would have been better that way. Maybe the hate bonus for Byleth would have been a little more flaccid had this come out. Gamers and gameritas, that's pretty much the arguments for and against this leak being real. But we're not done yet, cause we've got some other things that happened, mostly strengthening the argument of the leak being fake. But there was some other stuff that came out that helped the case of it being real too. So 5 days later, after the Twitter supernova on November 4th, a channel by the name of Music Boy Ouija released a video calling back to the leak called Smash Bros Ultimate Mallow Me Hat Gameplay Mod Download. You guys remember all those people that mocked Duster for his proof only being that he made a cube? Well, Music Boy tagged him like he was WWE, because this video was 3 minutes showing in clear detail the Mii brawler in pretty much the exact same costume wearing Mii headgear of Mallow. Now, I will say this though, if you look at the bottom screen on the left corner, you guys see that the hat is in this green color, making it look kind of weird. Luckily, that's something that Photoshop can probably spruce up in no time. This could have been what they did for the actual leak's bottom portrait, though there's no evidence of that, so obviously I'm not going to say that definitively. I'm just throwing it out there as a possibility. Ouija made this in better video quality, and it was only 5 days after the leak was out, which is very impressive for the amount of time he had to add the costume in there. This video, along with Duster's tweet, further strengthens the argument that modding Mii hats is not impossible like a lot of people claim, and Ouija even mentions that in his video at the very beginning, where he said, quote, TLDR, he said that it's impossible to mod Mii fighters, so here's proof that he's wrong. Other than that, after a bit of reflection on the leak itself, people noticed some things that led to the leak being a lot more sus in terms of the Mii hats. Since we're already on Mallow, let's talk about him first. Quite a few people try to disprove the leak was fake by saying that the Mallow hat in the leak is the same one as the Smash 4 mod, but this holds very little weight if I'm honest with y'all. For one, it looks way better placed than the Smash 4 one, and even in terms of textures, you see the differences despite the bad quality of the image given. Also, things like the eyes and the purple fluff at the top are also different as well when you take a good look, at least from what I can tell. Other people dismissed the leak as well, and honestly, I do believe that the leaker definitely made these from scratch, though he may have used this Smash 4 mod as an inspiration or as a reference to envision what a Mallow hat would look like as a Mii headgear. The Cacodemon hat shouldn't be left out though either, because people clock some things with that one as well. For one, there's this image here, which actually may give the hat some legitimacy towards the attention to detail that was put on the Mii hat, such as it getting the horns and the eye color right, compared to another mod where it got that wrong. And we all know how Sakurai is with attention to detail, especially in third-party characters and whatever comes with them. On top of that, I also looked on Game Banana, which is a site that's used for modders to publish their own mods to the masses, and I ended up seeing this, which is a mod pack download for Cacodemon, which, to be fair, was released in sometime around November of 2019. Now, I'm not saying that this existed before the leak was out, and I'm also not saying that the leaker just downloaded the mod and used that, because I feel like people would have clocked that earlier if that was just it. I show this to say that yes, there were talented people in the community that could have made these Mii hats, regardless of the obstacles. And to be fair to the leaker, Cacodemon seems like a challenge to create with all the detail. I mean, look at him.
Y'all gon' make me bust a smack up in here, up in here. Y'all gon' make my fingers snap.
Hey yo, is someone gonna tell him? And to cover all my bearings here, even if there are problems with these, you could make the argument that these costumes were allegedly made from a dev kit or some kind of demo of the costumes where it's a beta version of it, and the leaker had the dev kit to only see the functionality of the costumes. Now, what do I think of the leak? You know what? I think this comment here sums it up kind of perfectly. And this is, like I said, where I stand on it as well. Thank goodness these people can talk better than me, man. Damn. So shout out Smashbird on, I believe it was like Smashboards that I saw it on. Basically, they say it wasn't actually disconfirmed officially, like no creator has come forward or said anything, but every insider slash leaker who commented on it says it's fake. And the main argument about it being impossible to mod Mii hat has been completely disproven to the point where a Mallow Mii hat was modded, complete with the same jiggle physics as the one from Cacodemon Leak. The majority just seems to have accepted it as most likely being fake and moved on. So that's kind of where I stand with this as well. Once again, I'm not gonna sit here and say that, oh, I don't want Geno and DoomGuy in Smash Bros. I don't care if they get into Smash Bros. Or if they do get into Smash Bros. If they do, if they don't, I want them in for the fans, but as for me personally, I don't care if they get in or not. That's essentially it. And other than that, that's it. Alright, and I think that's all she wrote pretty much for this leak. Damn, I can't believe there's so much stuff regarding this. I'm not gonna lie to you. Oh well. Time to go to sleep. The floor is so uncomfortable. Oh gosh. Oh man, wait. How long is it out for? Like a year. Oh, okay. Well, alright then. That's a long time. What the hell? Well, how was the video received? Like, was it overall good or pretty good? Got some comments for you to read as well. You should probably respond to. Oh, wow. It's exciting, really. What was it like? 3 or 4 to start? What the hell is all this? The comments, you moron. Huh? Oh yeah, also you missed a bunch of stuff regarding the leak. Like, wow, you're pretty bad at your job. Dog, I'm new to this. Chill on me. Alright, buddy. So anyway, you should probably cover all that too. So here's everything. Whoa! I got you. Thank you, man. Oh yeah, also, you're having a child. It's a calculator. Wait, what the fuck? Okay, let's start off with the comments so the pain of my stupidity can be washed away. I'll go down the line and just respond, I guess. We're gonna go lunch line order, alright? Morphstar Changling said, big brain time. What if the leaker modded in their own Mii helmets to show us that the DLC Pack 2 would have Geno and Bethesda content? Now, looking back on this comment, this person might be, as the Brits say, mugging me off, fam. But you know what? I'll give them the benefit of the doubt because why not? I mean, there really isn't much to say about this comment in particular, but it would be a very interesting Uno reverse card if they faked the leak but only did so to point us towards the very real Fighter Pass Geno edition and Fighter Pass DoomSlayer edition, even though that's kind of impossible because there's one more left. So, like, you know what I mean? I just wanted to shout out this comment since it did give me something fun to think about, even if that's probably not true. And at this point, any semblance of happiness I can receive at this point without thinking about my crippling debt and endless anxiety of being approved of by social norms and peers around me would be lovely right now. Let's go to the next one. I forgot that leak existed. I'll be honest, I don't blame you. Yep, because Bethesda content was from Fallout, Vault Boy and a Cacodemon Leak is leaning towards to be real. First of all, in response to
Dark Doctor,
I did too. As for Stardust's comment, besides the very, very butchered sentence, I can see what you're saying. They basically refer to when Vault Boy got released as DLC, therefore it officially puts Bethesda in the ring for a brand spanking new character to release. The only problem I have is that it doesn't directly confirm this leak in particular. It just means that Bethesda is good to work with Nintendo and they have a good standing with each other, which is still reassuring to know, I guess, but I feel like it's a stretch to ignore the things that are against the leak just to say this leak is more likely to be real just because this Jimmy Neutron wannabe. Come on. Beside you, freak! Also, it's not like people thought Bethesda and Nintendo had a bad relationship to not have a Mii costume at the very least. But yeah, other than that, that's all really to say there. My boy, Obese Rob. Hey, what's up, Rob? High five? High five. Terry actually released on November 6th, which I distinctly remember because Terry was the best part of the past for me, and he released the day before my birthday. Happy birthday! Okay, let me stop. Now, from my tiny brain knowledge, there may have been some confusion here, and it may be my fault for not getting my words right. So I think Rob is referring to when I said this in the video. Anyways, on November 4th, 2019, there was a storm that happened on 4chan. There was something crazy that went on. Now, around during this time was November 4th, 2019. This was after the Terry stuff, because Terry got announced early September. Hero and Banjo already got announced and whatnot, and they already came out. Now, I think this was just a miscommunication, so I'll explain. And I've made sure to double check things just in case I was bugging out or anything, and just to make sure that I wasn't. So when I said November 4th, I was talking about when the leak itself was out to the public. I knew that Terry came out November 6th, which is why I said that Terry was out after the leak first appeared. I just wanted to give a proper timeline of events for it to be easy for everyone to understand. But yeah, I was talking about the leak, not Terry being released. Now, he also commented, my thing about this is that it implies it took longer to make these Mii costumes than it did to make any character from the DLC thus far. It's almost been a year. I responded with very true, which is why for the most part I do not believe in this whatsoever. But hey, it technically hasn't been completely disproved, so I keep it in the back of my head. Now, I'm gonna be real with y'all, I completely agree with what Rob says here. And I mean, especially at this point, I see it as unrealistic to believe they just have it in the background waiting for them. Oh, wow. Okay, so in response to Malik, I'm gonna say this in the nicest way possible, and I'll even put it in the perspective of when the comment was posted, just to be fair. Just to remind you guys, I am doing this in the perspective of when I put out my video and when these comments came out. I just want to be sure. Right? So, Malik Barker, my boy, you expect me to believe that the team that designs the Mii costumes went and designed 3 sets of them, realizing that Sakurai and the team had to visit and have the companies approve the characters before Cacomallow got released, those being the Rabbids, Assassin's Creed, Cuphead, Heihachi, and Vault Boy, and probably renewing the contracts of the other third-party companies alongside the Mallow and Cacodemon costumes. And that's not including Terry's set of Mii costumes that was released when the leak came out. Plan out what costume would be released when, and then have the team create that many that far ahead into the future? C-A-P Listen, I'm not saying it's impossible that that's the case, and before you say it, I realize that in order to meet the initial deadlines, they do have to pre-plan this stuff to some kind of degree, but to be this far ahead, especially since neither costume has been announced whatsoever, I'm sorry, but for you to say that they're waiting to release it sounds like a humongous stretch to me. And also, don't even get me started to where we're at now with the Mii costume. I mean, I will cover it still because it gives me bragging rights, but later on, it is what it is. Alright. Time for the big kahuna. Now, this comment by GuyroMaster is definitely the one that we're gonna have to spend the most time on, since they had a lot of disagreements with my own view. So we're gonna go down the list of things that they said and I'll comment on it. Just so I don't seem like that guy though, as we go through the comment, there are a couple things I agree with here in their response. And this isn't just me ragging on them just to rag on them. There are genuine things I gotta say, alright? Also, the last part talks more about problems with my own commentary than the actual leak, which is fine, and I responded to that part on my own. I'm gonna throw my hat in the ring to make some observations. Some people have already pointed out some things. That guy who made a cube and then did that DoomGuy helmet, the helmet was clearly not made from scratch, and he's full of BS if he says it is. It's a mod of the bionic armor headpiece that already existed in Ultimate. Same shape, just messed with model structure. That's cheap mod work. Also, if he was so bent on disproving the leak, he gave up way too quickly, so it's called a hype chill move. He's just wanting people to not hype up something that could potentially be fake. Now, as for that last part on the reread, I do agree that this was a hype chill move. Once again, one thing that I stressed in the original video that maybe this person missed, not assuming, I'm just saying, is that I'm not trying to show that he or people like Music Boy Ouija disproved the leak itself, nor was I saying that the leak is 100% deconfirmed just because he put a cube on a Mii fighter. That would be impossible for me to do because I'm not knowledgeable whatsoever on modding, and I don't think his intention was to either. The goal was, like he said, wanted people to stop hyping up something that could potentially be fake. It was to show people that modding the Mii fighter is not impossible. Something that seems you kind of downplay with your next statement that I'll get into later. Now, about his cheap mod work, I didn't want to assume anything without confirming it myself. Obviously, I don't have the knowledge to tell if the helmet was cheap or not, and I don't want to just be an asshole and just agree that his work is cheap without any knowledge, because Duster Buster is a talented modder. So I did something that I probably should have done in the video. I messaged him for more information. So I talked with him in DMs on Twitter and asked quite terribly, but I still attempted to ask him about his thoughts on the comment. And just so you don't think I twisted his words or made him look bad, here's my comment right here for you to pause and read. As you can see, I quoted that entire part. So listen, I don't want to hear that I misunderstood what he was saying or I purposely twisted his words to fit my own narrative. And if you think I used Photoshop to use it, listen, then you're hopeless, and I bet you think your neighbors are like holograms or something for the government to spy on you, bro. You probably Men in Black. Now, to quote Duster, he said the following: "By now there are hundreds of reasons why that Cacomallow Leak isn't real, but I'll give you as much leftover insight as I have. The DoomGuy helmet was ported from Doom 2016, and the cube was something I slapped together mostly as a little joke. Both garnered a pot of attention by a lot of people who desperately wanted to believe the me hat leak. The DoomGuy hat was not made from scratch by me, but it does not use existing content from the game to be made. Modding me hats is no different from modding any other kind of model in the game, including character and even stage models. It is true that the me faces that you make are data that the game looks differently, but the hats and outfits are standard models. The main thing that makes the fake leak convincing is that the models are of a nice quality. However, the Smash community is full of limitless talent, so the idea that a fan could have made both hats. It's true that tools to make model imports were more limited at the time of the leak, but it wasn't impossible. I'm a little confused in the question, so I don't know if I answered it fully, but if you ever want to discuss the leak on Discord or something, I'd be down. Also, I do realize that he could have lied to me. I'm not that stupid, but honestly, I feel like the answer he gave was perfectly reasonable. He never said they were one and the same or that he made the Doom helmet from scratch, and he didn't say it now. That one is actually going to be a blunder on my side of things, since I literally just assumed that the cube and the helmet were done in the same, just because he posted the pics on the same day. So apologies for that one, my fault, I'm sorry, alright, I hold my hands to that. As he says in the post, the helmet was apparently from 2016's Doom, and just to make sure, I made very quick comparison shots of the helmet in Doom and the helmet he modded in, and it seemed pretty accurate overall to me. Basically, I took the helmet he modded in, I took a screenshot of the game's depiction of the helmet, and then I just compared them that way. Obviously, I'm not a super master of enhancing the image or anything, so take that with a huge grain of salt. Doom doesn't have a lot of great images of his helmet since the game is played from a first-person perspective, but hey, I gotta work with something, right? Either way, I understand why they were skeptical of Duster Buster, but as he said, he was once again only trying to prove a point that it's not impossible to mod me costumes. That's it. Next point. Also, the argument wasn't that me costume models are impossible to do, but just really difficult to do without an existing base to make it on. Modeling a me outfit or headgear from scratch means customizing an entire 3D model to fit over an existing model. Even in that video that appeared 5 days later, you can see the fighter's icon is not matching the one in the original leak for the Mallow hat. The angle and how it sits on the head are different. The leak version is more on the head, like a hat, unlike the one from 5 days later, where it looks to be higher up. And no jiggle physics. Modding in full character models is its own thing. Me costumes are skins over an exist fighter, so they are made differently. Okay, for starters, I understand that the original post, keyword original, talked about it being hard due to having to match the file sizes and whatnot. Fun fact, I even acknowledged that it was in the original, that it was probably the community that over exaggerated and went ahead and said that it was impossible to mod me costumes and not the original post. Saying. However, it was the community that blew it out of proportion. Now, I understand that in the video there's a misunderstanding with the original post, and for that I do want to retract the statement that the guy was the bus boy of the community. Alright, I'm sorry, bus boy. I'll give you that, but you're not going to sit there and tell me that everyone was on the same page and that a large group of them didn't see the opportunity to throw out the word impossible and nearly impossible and ran with it. If they did, Duster wouldn't go to those lengths to make the cube joke, and Music Boy Ouija wouldn't have to make an entire video. And on top of that, responding to someone that made a very similar claim to you. On multiple occasions, Ouija said in his comment section that yes, there were people that stating the leak would be impossible to do. If you don't believe me, here you go. Just gonna pause that and let you read that, you know. Alright, cool. Also, just to cover all my bases, I filtered through Twitter and grabbed a couple screenshots of people saying that it was either not impossible to mod the knee hats or nearly impossible. This shows no, everyone was not on the same page when it comes to this leak not being impossible. And before you say it's not enough for you, this is just on Twitter. First of all, I'm sure people long since deleted their tweets on the leak. And yes, saying it's nearly impossible is just as bad in my eyes, since it's literally not. It's perfectly realistic, as there's extremely talented people in the community that have this ability. Contacting Duster, he even said that the technology was there to recreate the costumes like these. And since there were people that were creating the mod like Ouija, once again, I think it's pretty realistic to say that creating a leak like this was in fact entirely possible. It just takes a bit of knowledge that wasn't known to the public eye, since modding wasn't that popular back then, especially in Ultimate. But hey, if you don't believe me or want to be in denial, then go ahead. I really don't care at this point. And this is only a couple comments on one site. Imagine sites that are dedicated to this kind of topic and how many of them also said that making this leak is impossible, like Smashboards and Reddit. Now with Duster's statement, he said that the helmet was not from scratch. So if that's what you're talking about, Gyro, you got full confirmation here. Once again, that was more my mistake of assuming that he made the helmet from scratch, not his. Now, Gyro then talks about Music Boy Ouija's video of the leak, saying this, quote, even in the video that appeared 5 days later, you can see the fighter's icon is not matching the one in the initial leak for the Mallow hat. The angle, how it sits on the head are different. The leak version is more on the head, like a hat, unlike the one from 5 days later, where it looks to be higher up and no jiggle physics. Modding of full character models is its own thing. Meat costumes are skins over an existing fighter, so they are made different. There was one other comment along with theirs that talks about this as well. More specifically, the jiggle physics itself, where they said this, I just want to point out that in 3806 is how the leak in November had jiggle physics, and this mod doesn't. I would also point out with the new DLC fighter being announced being Steve from Minecraft, it took 5 years to talk about him in Smash, so maybe this leak does have some ground left if I'm honest. So first, I want to respond to the statements regarding what Gyro said was wrong with the mod that Ouija made. Two things. One, I think the fact that you're finding issues with his mod of the Mallow hat would be understandable normally, but note that Ouija most likely did all of this himself, and on top of that, in 5 days from when the leak itself was dropped. I don't understand why it's so hard to acknowledge the possibility of a person working on the alleged Cacomallow leak for more than 5 days. This was clearly after the hero was announced, so the person could have spent months, as far as we know, doing this, as the window of time between when hero got announced and released to the public and the Cacomallow leak itself came out, there's a huge gap in the middle. Also, it's a possibility that they received help from multiple people. Actually, scratch that, because he definitely did. Just in general, I'm not saying he had mod help, just help in general. Since if you notice in the actual leak, you see that the other two characters are actually controlled by people. Otherwise, the CPU tag would have been over the character, which I'll get into later. Two, and I've said this ad nauseum at this point, but I just want to hammer it into your brain. But the point was to prove that it was possible. Nothing more, nothing less. He says this during the intro of the video and in response to multiple comments, which in fact also shows that people did in fact make a big deal about it being impossible to do. The quality was more of a secondary thing that wasn't focused on as much. But the things you mentioned were so minuscule that I think if Ouija gave himself another week or so for polishing, the blemishes you point out would have been fixed. So I don't understand the point of saying that the angle and how it sits on the head are different and that the fighter icon looks slightly different. I even said in the video that the fighter icon thing could be fixed with Photoshop or something. This was posted, like I said, 5 days later, and this is a 3-minute video showing in clear-cut daylight of me wearing the Mallow headgear costume. Now, once again, I will say at the bottom screen on the left corner, you see that it looks kind of weird. That's something that Photoshop can do wonders for, and especially since that leak was recorded in such iPhone 3 quality, I think it will be pretty easy to mask that by just changing it in like Photoshop or something and just leaving it there. That's all I'm saying. Either way, the goal was not to replicate the leak exactly, and I think he made it pretty easy to realize what his intentions were when he was creating the mod and making the video at the beginning. And also, while I did compliment the actual leak itself for not looking like it was recorded off a freaking potato, it just looks like it was recorded off a slightly better potato, bro. I'm gonna be real with you. An improvement, but it's still bad. I feel like in the original video, I gave it too much credit to the quality, but hey, it is still better than most, so I'm not gonna take that back. I'm just saying. Either way, the point is, the fact that the leak was recorded at an angle which you can see in the corners, plus the worse quality than Ouija's video, means that you can't even talk about the minor details, like the angle and whatnot, unless the actual leak is shown at the exact same quality that Ouija's video was, which it wasn't. I could just easily counter back and say that the actual leak was recorded in worse quality on purpose to hide the very detailed you mentioned about Ouija. But hold on. But wait! We ain't done yet. Similar to Duster, I figured I would message Ouija, just in case, since his DMs are open, so why not? So I messaged him, and actually I got a response, and I was not expecting that, I'll be honest. Either way, this one is pretty lengthy, but I do want to go over it. So this is what he said. With how old that leak was, and modding back then was difficult, all I'm saying is that whoever made that old Cacomallow leak fooled everyone with a simple mallow texture and Cacodemon's model having bad specular map shininess and lack of details other than normal map. Like the demon's hat really looked like plastic figurine with missing details in the low quality image. But seeing that Geno is back as a me costume last December, this puts the final needle in the coffin for the Cacomallow leak. I don't expect it to be real because Square Enix being Square Enix, who limits some stuff for some reason, especially having copyrighted songs that will give you copyright claims to any video. I won't be surprised if Bethesda have some of their own content in Smash in any shape or form, since they did collaborate with Nintendo with Skyrim, Breath of the Wild costumes for the Switch version, and of course Vault Boy me costume in Ultimate. With the current modding today, it feels like modding is infinite because of no size limit in Acropolis, a plugin for Skyline, an environment for developing code mods on Atmosphere CFW, similar to 3DS Onion FS for Luma CFW. Oh, and Aaron Nitmar fooled many with the Master Chief me costume by scaling down the Fortnite model and giving recolor. So by all means, anyone could make a fake leak nowadays. I even fooled some with the Geno me costume leak a month after the Mallow Hat gameplay video. I doubt any future leaks that contains images and video proof of that character playing with different moveset and stop timer take things with a grain of salt, and it could be just a moveset mod, which is already possible, but a lot of effort. But we'll see what the future holds for the last two DLC fighters. Probably this June with their Nintendo Direct, or Smash speculation, not an actual insider leak, this is just speculation. Another thing to make the leak a little bit believable is dropping that debug mode that Ken Leak had, but that's just me. So that was that. Honestly, the part where he talks about CFW, Acropolis and whatnot kind of confused me, but these seem like to me various programs and extensions that basically help with modding a character in Smash Bros. As I've never touched the idea of making a mod or how to make one, I'm sure you guys wouldn't mind if we just glossed over Guys, come on. Don't look at me like that. Look, I know I haven't uploaded in a while, but like, don't make. All right, fine. Hold on. Give me a second.
Eventually.
Okay, so from what I researched and going from context clues, I'm going through the terms in the order that Ouija said. Acropolis, as Ouija said before, is a Skyline plugin, meaning kind of like an extension, I think, made by a lad named Jam1 Gamer and Ray2 SSB that basically allows the whole file size issue to be non-existent basically. Though, I'm not saying this is proof that the leak is fake because this was made in July 1st of 2020. So I'm not saying that this has anything to do with the leak itself, but for future reference to make it easier for modders to do their thing basically. Now, Acropolis is a type of CFW, like he said in the message. Now, what the hell is a CFW? CFW basically stands for custom firmware and has been around since the Smash 3DS area. Basically, it, as quoted by a lad named as Clouded Sun, is a firmware modified by developers and or programmers to add features to the firmware of a system or console. And if that's confusing to you, then think of it as like a patch that allows you to modify the game. In this case being Smash Bros. That's about as simple as I can make it, guys, I'm sorry. Apparently, there are different types of CFW, and Atmosphere CFW that Ouija mentions is the most popular one out of all of them. I assume that it allowed for the most diversity when it comes to making mods. Psst, this is me taking it with a grain of salt. I have no expert advice in this. Do not take that, don't take that seriously. Now lastly, there's Onion FS and Luma CFW. So Onion FS, as seen on the release page that I'm definitely gonna link in the description, is basically a fork of Layered FS, basically plugins used for the Nintendo Switch, which is a plugin made by Cell9 that redirects ROM FS and code access to the SD card, useful for game mods. So it seems like it may just be a way to put more into the Switch and or the 3DS. As for Luma's CFW, I couldn't really find anything when doing research, and I don't want to bother Ouija or Duster again, but as shown by the name, it is a type of CFW, so it seems to just be another type of custom firmware that was used in the 3DS version of Smash Bros. And that's about it for the most part. I know these were kind of scuffed definitions, but hey man, at least I tried to give you guys context instead of writing this man Ouija off saying he's speaking beatbox Thanos or something. Either way, I noticed that the question about the jiggle physics wasn't answered yet, so I made sure to get that answer since it was the one thing that everyone talked about to discredit the whole video. So after I asked him, he said this: all I did was replacing the slime hat with Mallow, since it is the only Mii hat that wiggles in its entirety. Keep in mind that these were recreation. I do not create the Cacomallow Mii leak, but to prove that modding Mii costumes slash Mii hats are possible, and no one cared to do so until that day. Would like to bring this up again, that I may be using the same model that the Smash 4 Mii mod uses. Well, it was originally a Brawl mod that replaces Meta Knight, but I modified it to include an actual bottom, unlike others that cut the model and call it done. This is the model that Smash 4 mod and I uses. It's similar, but not identical to the leak. And then he posted a link to a forum gallery where he kind of posted that, and I'll post that right now, you know. So there you go. He basically said what I said before, which was the goal was not to recreate the leak in its entirety, nor was it really to disprove the leak itself really, but it was to disprove the argument that it's impossible to mod Mii costume. And I'm sure if we gave Ouija more time, he could have made a more accurate depiction. Either way, that's about it for the most part. So next point. Also, to counter your argument about why they did not include Byleth in their leak, very simple reason is that the character wasn't done yet. Second reason is that they aren't that stupid. Mii costumes are not made at the same time a character is developed. They're usually already being made months and months in advance of their official reveal. So even with the slime already available as a Mii costume hat, why did that mod of Mallow hat not have jiggle physics, yet the leak did? Okay, so let me understand this. So you're telling me that they finished a year's worth of Mii costumes content for Fighter Pass 1 and 2 at this point, but we're going off when this video was uploaded. But it's hard for you to believe that Byleth was at least done to the point where he could jump and move around the stage? But you know what? You seem to have some insider information yourself, so I won't say anything about you not knowing what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe Byleth wasn't done and the leaker in question couldn't play with him. But let me counter your simple reason with, are you ready for this? Ready? Well, that was anticlimactic. Obviously, the leaker has some crazy insider information. So, tell me this, why didn't the person simply type the 6-letter password that would have shut everyone up at this point? And even if you want to say that Byleth wasn't finished at all, meaning that he wasn't even started on, which I think is ridiculous, but okay. It doesn't excuse that the leaker could have just typed the last character of Fighter Pass 1 on 4chan and called it a day. Overall, no excuses for the Byleth one in my opinion. But you know what? Just so that there's no kind of argument here, you can't go back and counter me again. Let's go even further with this. Let's say your retort is that maybe the leaker didn't know anything about the characters and they just simply didn't know that Byleth was coming at all. He just didn't have the knowledge. Even then, there's no excuse. You know why? I'll use your argument of them finishing multiple Mii fighters costumes months and months ago. So let me get this straight. Why not say what the 5th set of Mii costumes are? Why not at least a couple of them so that there's at least a little more to their credibility? Surely they must know about the fighter Mii costume since, you know, at this point it's been an entire year. Surely they could have spoiled that Cuphead or either of the Mega Men was coming to the game as a Mii fighter. But wait, hold on. Maybe you want to say that they didn't even know that. Ridiculous, but I mean, whatever. Cool. Alright, cool. Well then, maybe you want to say they work on a different team. One team's working on this, he was only on the team working on those set of Mii fighters. Well then, how about them leaking, wait for it, Terry's set of Mii costumes? I mean, shoot, the leak came out 2 days before the Terry stuff. Unless you're really trying to say that the team spent the remaining 2 days creating all those Mii costumes, which, quite frankly, is stupid if you think that, considering the whole argument of people saying is that the devs finished things years before they're announced. But wait, you could be telling me, well, hold on, man, hindsight's 2020. Maybe, just maybe, the leaker didn't have the forethought to do something so simple. And man, would that have been a stretch? But maybe there would have been some credence to the leak if only the most infamous leak in Smash history, the ESRB leak that a lot of people know about at this point, did the exact same thing. And they did that to raise their credibility. So as I've said before, there are absolutely no excuses for not saying anything else other than putting out these 2 trash ass videos. And once again, I just want to reiterate that I'm speaking from the perspective from when I put out the video. So I'm not being unfair to the comment. Anyway, next point. Now lastly, to address your question on the timer, you neglect to talk about another thing, the camera itself. Sakurai has previously mentioned that the dev camera angles they work with are not played in the build that's released. Now I'm not going to hold you. I don't know what kind of correlation you're trying to make with my whole timer argument and comparing it to what Sakurai said about the camera. The only thing I can gather from that is you're saying that it's impossible for the outsiders to mess with the timer in the game, and well, that was literally the whole point of Korban's tweet, was to disprove that whole thing. I know that cameras can't be played in the released build, but I gotta ask, what does that have to do with my whole argument about Korban's timer? If you're watching this, I would love to know what you were trying to say, because I have no clue. He further has said before that the version we see in development is not the final version. It's very possible that the stage Yujutsu's altar was done months and months prior to Hero's release. The footage with Ken and the 2 Miis could have been done before the game was even released. Now other than that, I don't have any other problems with what you said here. It's all assumptions and speculation at the end of the day. And while I don't necessarily agree with certain things that you said, everyone is entitled to their opinion about when Sakurai works and releases things. Either way, next point. Also, to add to the thing with Cacodemon that helps the case some is Bethesda being under Microsoft now. Because of this, it means that any content that was made from Doom for Smash had to have been made long before this partnership was established. So if we saw the hat in the future, it's because the content was already completed. Now, just for y'all to know, the news that Microsoft bought Bethesda was revealed after the release of my part 1 of the video. But this doesn't have to be the case, to be honest. Microsoft and Nintendo, even before Steve was announced, have been in a very good relationship, to the point where I feel like DoomSlayer could be in before, during, or after the deal is agreed upon. I even made an entire video on that, so what you said doesn't mean anything. Either way, I don't think the fact that Microsoft buying Bethesda really means anything personally. I definitely don't think that increases or decreases their chances of a rep from Bethesda. And if you want an example of this, look no further than Banjo and Kazooie themselves. Microsoft has owned Rareware for such a long time now, and if your statement was true, that would mean that it would be impossible for them to get in Smash. But they're in Smash right now because Smash Bros is literally just re-publicity. Why would Microsoft pass that up? So I'm gonna be honest, your statement right there doesn't make any sense to me, bro. Now please understand, I'm not saying you should believe the leak now. What I'm saying is to keep your expectations in check and observe everything. There are still characters to come as well as Mii headgear and costume, so keep a lookout. I've already been told Hollow Knight Mii costume is a thing. Alright dog, you got one more chance before you're bub kissing out of here, dog. I'm just saying, you got one more shot, alright? Alright, let me stop. Dog, trust me, I've had my eyes peeled at everything just to make sure I didn't miss anything here. I even said that while my expectations weren't high for the leak, I never wrote it off completely. Just wanted to reiterate that just in case people didn't watch the first part of this. And hey, you know what? Looking forward to the Hollow Knight Mii's costume coming eventually, I think. And for the most part, that's about everything that I wanted to respond in terms of the comments that I got. Thanks to everyone, especially GuyroMaster, for letting me have a second take of explaining myself and think about things that I mentioned in the video. Your thank you card will be in the mail at some point. Before we skip through time and cover some stuff that happened since the video came out, I wanted to cover a few things that I didn't mention in the leak that, in my opinion, add suspicion to the leak at the time. Keep in mind that all of this was, again, things that happened before my video on the leak came out. Now, when I was watching the video back before pressing that juicy upload button, I noticed something about the leak that I was debating going back and talking about, but you know... you know what I mean? I wasn't feeling it that day, flat. So the thing I noticed was what I mentioned before about there being multiple people playing the game, as you can see by the player icons instead of the CPU icon. Now I don't know about you, but I don't think the leaker is able to play with 3 separate controllers, you know. 2, fine, maybe. But even if one of the characters is just taunting and whatnot, unless the dude turned into 4 arms, I find it very hard to believe that one person is controlling 3 characters at the exact same time. So that leads me to some questions I have about this. Why is this the case? Is this because they wanted to have more control so that there are less issues that people could point out? As I said before in the last video, were they trying to hide the fact that something was up with the timer, similar to Korban's video where he played with the CPU, which made people go at him because there were justified issues with the timer?
really makes you think.
Another thought I had is perhaps maybe the people the leaker played with maybe helped with creating the leak in the first place. Maybe they were also talented at making mods as well. All just speculation. For all we know, he could have gotten his uncle and his grandma to play with him. I don't know, but I do think it's some food for thought, even if you think I'm looking too much into it or don't think so. It's just a little speculation. Now, the other thing that I didn't mention, honestly, I'm kind of mad at myself for not saying this in the original, is that the raw videos of the leak are still on YouTube. If I type in Cacomallow and scroll, there are plenty of videos of this leak. Not one has been deleted. It's weird because Nintendo are usually very strict when it comes to showing these type of things, especially with Smash Bros stuff. Sakurai has said that he's been more strict on this type of thing ever since the ESRB. Speaking of, back when they were less strict on these things, the YouTube videos that only showed the video leaks got deleted without a second glance and in a short amount of time. Now with this, I mean, it's been a year in at the point the video came out. The costumes had yet to be released at this point, and these are just chilling there. I easily found the videos and I was expecting to have a very hard time to finding them on YouTube so I can use them or anything. Now your retort will probably be something along the lines of, oh, they're just me hats, man. It's not that big a deal. And my retort back is, you're completely and utterly wrong, my friend. Having two third-party me hats that could have hinted to future inclusions, whether it be fighters or other me hats, is a big deal. Give me an example real quick of a time where Nintendo acted on a Smash Bros leak that was less crazy than this. Let's take the SNK website leak that happened where Nintendo accidentally leaked that a character from SNK is coming to Smash Bros due to links at the bottom of the screen. This was even more broad than Cacomallow, as with that, you're getting the third-party company and their respective series that were chosen. Whereas with the SNK leak, it was just prematurely revealing the company that's going to get their character now. On top of that, Terry was revealed 3 days later, and while mostly everyone predicted that Terry was a newcomer, it wasn't outright shown that the character was Terry. Yet they still deleted it immediately after they realized the mistake. Guys, if this leak is true, this would be the fattest L I'd lay on Nintendo for like a large amount of time. I honestly, I don't know. Doom content is clearly shown here, and it would spoil content coming up, no matter how significant or insignificant you think mean costumes are in the long run. Now, keep this in mind as well. I understand there are explanations to this that you could write off. For example, people have said that maybe these are scrap designs. However, that doesn't explain why the videos are still on YouTube, as I'm sure not only Nintendo, but also Bethesda and Square Enix would want that scrubbed off, as it was planned back then to be a design. So why are the videos still up? It just doesn't add up in my opinion. Also, why would these be scrapped? I feel like there must be a good reason for scrapping multiple third-party Mii costumes. I feel like the only reasons why is because of timing, so it couldn't be done, or the only other explanation for them not deleting it would just be that Sakurai has just not seen it for all this time, which personally I have a very hard time believing, considering the fact that not only Nintendo, but Sakurai are a lot more strict on leaks throughout the development. So you would think he would keep a hawk eye on this sort of thing. Now, one thing I also should have spent more time on is if we look at the other leakers in the community that actually have credibility of some sort. Now, in the first part of the video, there was a response towards the end of the video by Smashburb talking about Vergaben and Sabi disregarding the leak completely. So shout out Smashburb on, I believe it was like Smashboards that I saw it on. Basically, they say it wasn't actually disconfirmed officially, like no creator has come forward or said anything, but every insider slash leaker who commented on it says it's fake. And the main argument about it being impossible to mod Mihat has been completely disproven to the point where a Mallow Mihat was modded, complete with the same jiggle physics as the one from Kakadin League. The majority just seems to have accepted it as most likely being fake and moved on. So that's kind of where I stand with this. Now, unfortunately, no matter how much research I could do, I couldn't find any official statements by them, but the silence about it seems to mean they never took the leak too seriously anyway. If there was anything that they said, I couldn't find anything, so I won't say this is a point to the leak being fake, but I digress. Anyway, there was this one leaker named Fat Man on Ice, a leaker who was very adamant about this leak being real. However, the issue is that he's been a huge Geno fan since Brawl from what it seems. Now, look, I'm not saying this automatically means he's not credible just because he's a Geno fan. Trust me, there's a lot more I could talk about, but that whole thing is probably worth its own video at one point, but he is not a credible source whatsoever. Now, I'm not going to talk about everything just to show how he's not credible. One thing that he said is that his very credible sources commented that the lineup for Fighter Pass 2 were Waluigi, Master Chief, Geno, Dante, Lloyd, and Crash Bandicoot. So for this last one, it's a doozy. Now keep in mind that all of this could be faked, and I'm in no way saying that you shouldn't have suspicion on this, but it's interesting nonetheless, especially if it's true. But just to cover all my bases, please take this with a grain of salt. This is what I label as the Hefty Saga. Let's begin dissecting. So we start out this little discovery of mine with me going on Smashboards and looking for what the general public thinks of this leak nowadays and whatnot. Now I did a lot of research, but I actually came across this post that starts off what I'll label, like I said before, the Hefty Saga. This post on Twitter was by Junie, and it had some interesting info, and they definitely thought so too. Quote, so apparently this hashtag Smash Bros Ultimate Mallow and Cacomallow Leak has been all but debunked. Still not 100% sure on it, more like 90% sure. This seems convincing though. Screenshot not mine, by the way. Now under the tweet is a pic that they linked that says the following: we think we know the two people behind it. One specifically has been making content for SMRPG, freaking out over Doom, and recently modded his Switch. Yep, confirmed that he was responsible for the me hats. Two people are, yeah, they made the video to release the mods and figured they'd have some fun first. Nice, kind of what I expected. So if this is true, then it would definitely explain how there's 3 characters on screen being trolled at one time. Having 2 very talented people working on this also explains the good quality of the leak as well. The only issue that I have is what I think everyone and their very friendly uncle would have a problem with. Literally anybody could have written this. I mean, the names are blocked off and everything. It's just not that useful all on its own. It's more of a support piece to other evidence. So don't worry, I realized that there needed to be more for this to have any credibility. So I kept on digging through GameFAQ threads to try and figure out what was going on here. Then I came across this GameFAQ thread that was talking about this exact tweet. I saw a user by the name of Hormator say, and what I and everyone else was thinking. This totally legit, heavily censored and easily fakeable screenshot isn't mine, by the way. I could literally make a picture just like this that gives anecdotal evidence as to why it's real. And hey, they're exactly right. So then I looked for a response, preferably one with some type of evidence in it. Let's just say I definitely found something, gamers and gameritas. So now we enter Senseless Break, who responded to Hormator by linking a Discord link, showing a message that said the person who sent the message on Discord was actually a reputable top modder in the community. Nonetheless, I still like it if someone came forward with it. We think we already know the 2 people behind it. One specifically has been making content for SMRPG, freaking out over Doom, and recently modded his Switch. Yep, confirmed that he was responsible for the me hats. 2 people are, yeah, they made the video to release the mod and figured they'd have some fun for it. So it seems that these messages line up with the other messages that Junie sent on Twitter, so that's good. And the reputable modder is Vishera Games Minecraft Tutorial. Anyone with that kind of name gotta be reputable at some point. Now following this up, I was actually able to find this post right here, which says already proven fake, bro, and it has 4 images of 2 people talking back and forth with each other, saying a bunch of French. There's one word that I can see there that I'm definitely gonna blur out, but you know, don't worry about it. Now these could be the modders that created the leak. You guys know how I said take things with a grain of salt. Take this with an extreme grain of salt, like 1 grain or something along those lines, because there's not much merit to it. It literally could be anyone who said that, but I just wanted to throw that out there because that could be it. Now the person that tweeted this out did in fact send a translation of it that I'm gonna put on screen right now, of the person named Zero Suit Violet that actually translated everything that they were saying in the first page, in the first page alone, and it had a lot of different things. Once again, I'm gonna need to censor something in it, but you know, it'll be like that. So ultimately that's essentially all this is. I just wanted to add this in here because I found it while editing this video and it was super cool. So let's just say this is the stamp on part 1 of this Hefty Saga thing. Now we enter a person that is known in the community as Hefty. And don't worry guys, I did a little background check of this person just to see if they were a reputable modder, and they definitely are, considering that to my knowledge, just to reiterate, to my knowledge, Hefty was one of the first to create a mod that changes the model of the fighter. Just so we're all on the same page, there's a difference between a texture mod and a whole model swap. Sorry, I don't really know the right terminology, so just go with that, alright? Because I know there may be people that say that he was not the first to create a mod. The first being a one for a shiny version of Mewtwo. to. But that is a texture mod, whereas Hefty was involved with creating what I would dub as a model swap mod. A texture pack is when you add to an already existing character model, and I would say are much easier to do considering it just takes some retexturing, compared to a model swap mod, which is essentially taking an entire character model, sometimes even made from complete scratch, and making it and rigging it to an existing moveset to a character. After that, you have to make sure where polygons aren't stretching and blah 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 blah. Let's be honest, do you really care? Probably not. So we'll just say it takes a shit ton of work and move on. So just for a few examples, Hefty was actually responsible to help make a Peter Griffin model swap over King K. Rool, and also created a Shrek mod over Ganondorf. Both mods were announced to the public in very early March of 2019, meaning they've most likely worked on it in January or February of 2019, which is only a few months into Smash Ultimate's release. A very impressive feat indeed, even if they weren't the very first. So now that we got that out of the way, let's continue forward. So Hefty Clefty Beppy actually responded to Wildline's comment, you know, the busboy comment from before, and he actually said the following: I've seen this post like 80 times. This is a custom-made model. People can optimize custom-made models and adjust the proportions of custom-made models because they are custom-made for the purpose of being a mod. So you know what? Frick you guys. He is a busboy. Don't even say anything. Don't want to hear it since Mr. Hefty Defty Lefty said so. Yes sir, yes sir. And even before this, which you can tell by the time differences when they sent the message, Hefty seems to be having a conversation and discussing with various people who were trying to figure things out, especially those that were talking about the Mii costumes being impossible to do. Keep in mind, the messages go from the bottom to the top, but Hefty Hippos said, quote, we can absolutely edit Mii costumes. We can't edit Mii heads, but we can edit their models. Anyone who said that Mii costumes are hard to mod is going off of nothing. They are regular nums. There's nothing weird about costume models that will make them impossible to mod. I don't have a Twitter, bruh. Ask Sabi or something. Hard to mod doesn't mean impossible anyway. This is because nobody cares about Mii's. I ripped Isaac's Mii costume model once to screw around with the big rig for other purposes, and these are totally editable. What you should be analyzing is the fact that the CSS pictures are rendered in game. It only hasn't been done before because people don't really play Mii's, and the modding scene favors actual character resigned and swapped. So if the Mii leak is real, then is Geno in? I haven't analyzed the characters too much. I'm more focused on getting rid of people's misinfo on modding right now. Bruh, people would say it was fake mod. Not how it works. You can import all new models, and you have been able to since day one. Whoever said it's hard to mod Mii models lied. Someone's making one to disprove y'all. LMAO. Sweet. I assume this was again a response to people saying that the leak is impossible to make, which once again has shown to not be true whatsoever. Further confirmation that yes, saying that they were impossible to edit was in fact truly horse doo-doo cheese. And keep in mind, this all happened was on November 4th. I never thought I'd see the day where a random day in November was better than Christmas where I got a pair of Crocs. But hey, weirder things have happened. And that, my friends, is the extent of my research and where we finally stop. Now that we have the full story, kind of everything that I pieced together and whatnot, let's finally skip to the future and see if the leak holds up to this is not what was promised on the brochure. So luckily there wasn't too many things that happened after making the first part. However, there was one crazy turn of events moving all the way to December 17, 2020, where the Sephiroth presentation was occurring. Now, I already had a feeling as to this being a major shift in whether the leak was true or false in my own eyes, since this would probably be the only Square Enix character that's coming to the game. And would you look at that? Sakurai starts off by showing the Mii costumes, and one of those costumes is the doll boy himself. No Mallow, no nothing. Now, obviously, at least for me, this pretty much put the leak in a coffin for me, but people were still fighting and saying that this doesn't mean Geno was deconfirmed, and all I gotta say, y'all really never give up, huh? I mean, at this point, I have to respect it. Still kind of desperate, but like, damn. That's it. That's all I have to say. Just damn. And what's even more crazy is that the DoomSlayer got deconfirmed on October 5th, 2021, with the addition of Sora as the last fighter, confirming that the desperate people that were still hoping for Geno as the last fighter were wrong, and DoomSlayer being a Mii outfit, which was pretty much put at the last minute. Honestly, I find it so ironic that the characters that this leak would have implied to be fighters both turned out to be Mii costumes instead. I genuinely wasn't expecting that. And after that point, it also ended Smash Ultimate and any sort of updates with the game, closing our insane story of this Cacomallow leak as fake. You know, looking back on this leak, it honestly should have been obvious as soon as Byleth got revealed as a final DLC character. But I think, and this is just me, I could be wrong, but I think these people that stood by the leak just wanted Geno to be confirmed. In which I mean, like, fair play, but oh, let's be honest, it wasn't happening after the Mii costume. Why was there still people arguing for it? Well, only time will tell what happens with DoomGuy and Geno and their inclusion in Smash Bros. But yeah, gamers and game readers, that's all she wrote. This story was a hectic one, and one that I'm probably never going to forget. Thank you for going on this journey with me, talking about this leak for the final time, and I hope you guys enjoy. With all that being said, you can put your spatulas down now, but keep it sizzling, my Baconators. Peace!